is why CTE right now, it's just bubbled up so much because the truth is it isn't a side pathway, and it can't be. It's infrastructure for relevance. It's the foundation of why we learn things.
A lot of people echoed this thought that disruption was described as hard. It was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. Disruption is having the hard conversation.
That's where mistakes are made, yet we learn and we make it better, and then everything gets better. Your talent pool gets better, your value of your company, your education, all of this starts to level up.
I really liked this idea when reading through the answers that people said, is that schools are becoming talent hubs. Systems don't change until adults do.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Peter Hostrawser here, got Alli Dahl. What's happening? We're into 2026. Days are getting longer.
Ooh.
Sun is hopefully setting after 7 p.m. wherever you are. I don't know.
I don't know. It's not going to be that late. That's optimistic.
Yeah.
But we're going to go back a little in time in order to go forward today. And we got to set the stage a little bit for this episode because if we go back, we met like at ACTE Vision Conference in Nashville, Tennessee in December of 2025. And I just want to pause for that for people who don't know, Peter and I had been podcasting for 3.5 years before we met in person. And it was at that conference. And we got to share a little bit at that conference, and that's kind of what sparked this episode. So I'll let you kind of, set the stage next.
Sandy Adams, right? Like we were in the admin opening session, and it was wild, packed room. By the way, it's so funny. I get so many people who are like, yeah, you were meeting somebody. I saw a video. It's like, so that video is out there somewhere circulating it was on LinkedIn. I'm not sure where else, but it's all over the place. That was a great moment. But yeah, I think, when we were looking at ACTE, the Vision Conference, very, very big conference. And we really just posed a question. We just kind of put it out there. And, I had some of the cards with me, and now I don't know where. I reorganized my office, but basically it was like, how are you disrupting education? And we were in, like a green room that was like blue room and curtains, but we were talking to people, and we had like a QR code out. We also had it on the screen in front of the whole audience that was in that opening session, and it was really cool because what we're going to share today is how people are disrupting education in 2026. It's such a wide open question. And these responses, they came from people in leadership roles with responsibility with systems, budgets, outcomes. And that we just kind of threw it out. There wasn't any kind of, hey, we want you to answer this about disrupting or this. But Alli, you were able to pull out, some patterns. So talk about some of the big ideas and where we're going with this.
Yeah. So we asked all of these. This was a leadership opening session at this conference. And I had never been to ACT conference. So I do want to just kind of say, like, if you're in CTE, Career Technical Education, this is like the Super Bowl conference that you go to. And so there were like over 6,500 people at this conference. Our session, I want to say, had well over 500 people in that room. And we got around 50 responses so that's pretty good. So thank you to everyone who responded. And so, it was just, how are you disrupting education in 2026? And what we kind of found through looking at the responses and looking at kind of the big ideas is that disruption is not theoretical anymore. and it's already happening across district, state systems. And that's so encouraging for us for the podcast. And it was really good to hear from people from all over the country and to just get like this rich data set. And so this episode, it might like when I was kind of synthesizing the data and everything, it was like ChatGPT was like, this is going to be more like a field level manifesto. And I was thinking, like, man, Christy Valesky and Jeff Frost are going to love this episode. And if you love their book, CTE Reimagined,
Yep.
it really kind of showcases the trends that what's happening and what,
I got it
uh,
here.
yeah,
I
what
can
I have
find
mine
that. I can't find the thing that I needed.
right. I have my book right here too.
There we go.
Um, And so it's just like where education leadership, where they are, where they want to head and where they are heading, and like kind of the collective. And so we wanted to share, um, like in an episode to one, just like as a thank you to everyone
Mhm.
who responded, we're going to share out some of the responses that we got permission to do.
Yep.
And also look at like what are like the kind of the big themes or trends that we found because 2026 is a year for bold action. And so this is what leadership in CTE in school districts, particularly post-second or secondary, maybe some post-secondary, most people were in the secondary level, are doing.
Hmm.
And so it's not theoretical, it's real, it's happening, and we're excited to share it.
Yeah. So, well, let's dive in. The first, I guess, like pattern that came out was the myth that we're finally letting go of the CTE is a second choice. It is no longer a second choice. I really like this because you always got the, well, these kids are going to college and then, but oh, it's okay. You're going off to a different, or trade or something. Oh, you're going into technology. That's really nice. And now it's really a place for all students. We can always go back to Mark Covell. I love his conversation on that, which he has the highest rated shorts on our YouTube with I don't know, five figures, maybe even six now. Who knows? People watching that, but really, like it is about this is a place where these skill sets as well as academics really connect the professional world, and it's not about choosing college or career. And I'm getting a couple of shout outs here, but Jason Van Nuss has always said it's not college and career. It's not college or career. It's always been like career, and then college will help you even go further into CTE. So I really like that. I'm going to read the quote, the first quote from Carrie Atkins, who's a principal and director for CTE. This was a good. Some people you can tell might have been in English, because I'm one person that's going to put one line out, just like, yeah, CTE good. I don't know. I need to work on my writing, but this is very eloquently written by Carrie. I'm disrupting education by challenging the outdated perception of career and technical education as a second choice option, and instead positioning it as one of the most powerful drivers of student agency, equity, and workforce readiness. The disruption is reframing it as a pathway for all students, not because we lowered expectations, but because the world changed. Wow. There you
Dang.
go. Take that one
When I,
and run with it, Alli. That's right there.
when I read that, I was just like, I couldn't have said it better in terms of just the ending there where it's like we didn't lower expectations in CTE. The world, it's like she says the world changed. I think the world caught up. It was like this best kept secret
Yep.
in my mind. I had no idea what was going on in the CTE departments in any of the schools that I taught at as a core teacher. And it's not like I thought like they were less than or greater than. I just didn't know. Like they
Mhm.
were like a best kept secret. And I remember students, being in like speech and debate or is it FMLA or no,
Hmm.
FCCLA, like, or DECA, or there's all those organizations that are
Hmm.
like business related.
Yep.
And I had some friends in high school that did those, and it looked boring to me, like as a
Hmm.
science person. Like, I'm just be honest. Like, I wasn't interested in it. I
Yeah.
was like, oh well, I'm doing math and science, and like I never took those classes.
Hmm.
But I mean, the explosion of entrepreneurship and business and small business ownership and all of that, like the world is shifting. And so CT is hot, like, right now. And I like that the mindset is uh adapting,
Yeah.
because it encompasses everything. And like Tracy Mayfield also said that she's disrupting education by breaking the belief that college is the only pathway for all. And it's not.
Yeah.
And so like I loved hearing that leaders were like dismantling the myth that it's a second choice, because it's really not. I would have benefited from it. I mean, I think of all the business coaching I did when I was transitioning out of the classroom,
Hmm.
and I could have learned all of that probably in high school.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, and that's and that goes along to what Christian Kish said, who's a principal, transforming CTE into a launch pad that gives students a true competitive advantage in college, careers, and life. And all those are and. That's what I really like about this is it is a competitive advantage. Just had a huge conversation with my co-coordinator, Brett Thompson, big shout out to him, about this competitive advantage. So it's not like when we're working with our students, and we'll get into this a little bit later into this podcast, and I'm sure we've talked about it in other ones, is where we're talking with our students and we're working with them. And at the end of the day, I'm not here to grade you harshly or to take things away from you. I'm here to push you to understand that career and technical education and these skill sets and work-based learning and these experiences at the age that you are before you go off into whatever your post-secondary route is a launch pad, just like Christian's saying here, of a competitive advantage. You will have more experience and more thought processes and more skill sets than somebody who is just plainly going through traditional academics. And I think that it's a hard shift, but also let's not forget, quick shout out to Jeremy Smith, who let us know as educators, especially in high school, we're getting pinched. We got the parents want these skill sets and these professional skills, and they want the academic skills. So I really think that this CTE is that launching pad, and when it's positioned as a foundation,
Yeah.
everything means something, which leads us to our second part. When if learning isn't real, it doesn't stick. Alli, this is the reason why I got into education. And I know I've used this story quickly at a lot of different presentations that I've done. But really, when I had elementary school students working on video production, they were learning math, science, English, all these different things. And I was pointing it out to where it meant something, it was real. And those students and their teachers were saying they're doing better now because they understand it. And that kind of pulled out of these conversations, or how people are disrupting, is, you know, I love the Jessica Sampley, the Academies and CTE director, said, I refuse. This is disruptive. I refuse to let learning stay indoors or stay divided. That's killer. That's killer.
I know. I mean, like, I want to preface, the only question we asked on the form was, how are you disrupting education? Like,
Hmm.
that was it. That was the prompt. There was no other fields. I mean, like, other than like your name, but that was the question. And so just for someone to be like, this is what I'm doing, it's amazing. And she goes on to talk about like turning standards into sweat, theory into muscle and curiosity into real work. I was like,
That needs
whoa.
to be on a shirt.
Like, can we use Jessica? Can we use that for a shirt, please?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just but she wasn't the only one. A lot of people in their answers talked about disruption
Hmm.
as making learning physical, applied, and authentic. Real environments replace simulated compliance. I know we've heard that before, but it's like I think what's so awesome is that this isn't just what makes this episode special is, when we're doing one-on-one or two-on-one conversations, like pulling in a guest or two, it's like they are talking about their experience and yes, we've had hundreds over 400 episodes of experience of people disrupting education in various ways. But when you have a group of leaders who are saying this, then there's like we're on the cusp of something and
Yeah.
that this isn't like these little isolated pockets. Like
Hmm.
this is happening, this is being pushed. And so it's awesome to know that students are are getting more and more of these experiences and that I mean to me relevance should be non-negotiable,
Right.
but to know that that is happening more and more and it can kind of spread and can kind of catch. I mean, I know for 2025 we talked with Mark Essex about like setting education ablaze and on fire and everything.
Hmm.
And so I think it is catching. It is catching. And so that's really cool. And I couldn't have had a better quote than that one from Jessica
Yeah, I know.
Sampley.
She
So
went
thank you.
hardcore, totally
Thank you.
hardcore. And I love that because, some of the things that are, kind of examples that we were thinking about and talking about here is we had a big conversation about the flex schedules that are designed for students and different things like that. And here is a bump like in this whole thing is really understanding when you set something up and you're like, hey, we want to experience something and then all of a sudden the blockers come in,
Yeah.
and people start talking, well, we can't do that because we can't do that because, well, it's not a can't, it's like, okay, so we got to figure that out, right? Because we are on a traditional foundation and we're disrupting education, and that was a big conversation that we had today, before the podcast as well. Is yeah, we live in this world now. Let's make it work the best we can in this world, and then as it starts to progress, it will scale itself out of these blockers. And I think that's where we need to go next. Is that out of these blockers and out of the school, then there is industry and partners.
Mm,
Um, it's the partnerships in our communities are no longer just a separate entity. It's got to be a co-designer. And I think that is another big piece to this puzzle is because a lot of things that we do in our internship program is we're like, we will build with you. We were just at a
mm,
job fair last weekend while we were this is in January when we're recording this, but like we were talking with a lot of people and they didn't understand like a lot of people were like, "Hey, I would really love to do this in our HR or this," and we're like, "We will build it with you." And guess what? It's for free outside of the tax dollars you pay. That's what we're here for. So it's a co-designer. So and again, that kind of goes into even bigger brands. Now depending on where you are, I mean, if you have access to a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. Like you just start partnering with these industries. So like David Livingood, who's an executive director, so partnering with major brands to provide equipment for students like Hunter Engineering, Lincoln Electric, 3M, Milwaukee Tool, and we've talked to Scott Carr and some of his people up in Wisconsin. They do a lot of different work with this. Um, Going into Trisha Jenkins, who is a CTE coordinator, we've hired 52 high school students as youth apprentices, and we're expanding. Like this is a co-designer, and it's no
mhm.
longer, oh, I have to babysit. It's no longer I have to, check box these students. It's what value can they bring to you? And guess what? As a co-designer, that's where mistakes are made, yet we learn and we make it better. And then everything gets better. Your talent pool gets better. Your value of your company, your education, all of this starts to level up. And I really love that we are no longer asking to watch our kids outside of school. We are asking people for just to trust our students and to coach them a little, but we'll coach them as well, and they will bring a value. And if we need to adjust, we will. We will co-design this thing. So I think that those are two like just amazing quotes there.
Yep. And I think so we on the podcast we've had this debate of like talent pipelines. And I really liked this idea when reading through the answers that people said is that schools are becoming talent hubs.
Yeah.
And when you think of a like a hub, it's a place where you can like go and get resources or people or tools or whatever it is. It's a hub. It's a hub of information. It's a hub of resource and people and talent. There's so much talent in a school. And you've got especially a high school,
Yep.
or a college, right? University. And I think shifting that focus of making the school a place to hub, to come, to
Mhm.
resource, to network, to grow, to build is learning. And it's so local and community based. And then right, like most school districts have at least some industry nearby, probably a big name. Even if you're in a small town, like a
Mhm.
small, big town, there's likely something. And we've talked to people like Jason Waukee, who's rural. And like, I think even where my parents live, they live in rural Wisconsin. Like, there are a couple major manufacturing or industries in the area that employ a lot of people that could partner and like come into the school. Like the school building is just so underutilized, but knowing that there are leaders here and they're really shifting from even partnership to co-design is
Yep.
so encouraging. I know people out here, like that's the other thing we want to highlight is just these are people doing this work. You're like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like there are blueprints. There are things, people that can help you along the way. Um and I think just thinking about like school isn't preparing students for the workforce, that it's embedded in it,
Hmm.
right? It's like what, like this is a hub and your pathway, your route, you can find it here. And
Yeah.
it's not one size fits all. It's all sizes fit everyone. I
I
don't
like.
know.
Yes. And I think, well, I think as a part of that, like, let's not forget, right? School is a workforce area. Like it is a probably it could be the biggest business in your community. And I think that is a what Brett always calls the lowest hanging fruit of something that we can work with. If we don't even trust our own students to work and to co-design things for our students in our own buildings, we got a problem. And I think that's a starting space. You hear the companies like 3M and Milwaukee Tools and these great things, and I love that. And basically, what those schools have figured out is a way to make this happen. And maybe you're like, I got no partners, or I am in a very rural area or whatever. Your school should be the number one place. So you put your students to work, and try to have them figure out and co-design with you right in your school. Because if your school
Mhm.
isn't doing it, why is industry going to, believe that you can do it? So I think that's something that a lot of the leaders in this room that we had when we asked this questions were ready to do. There really is nothing that can't be done within your school where students can be that the school can be a partner to co-design areas for our students to work. And also, I think another thing that, well, man, we saw a lot of this at ACTE. I saw a lot of this at FETC is the technology, right? It's a force. If technology is a force multiplier, it's not the point, right? Um, AI, VR, and flexibility can be used to remove barriers and not just to add flash. So a couple of the quotes there. I apologize. This is a tough name. Sudha Venkatasan, I think. So sorry if I butchered your name there, Sudha. But using AI to deliver real-time individualized learning at scale. All right, like this is where we start breaking down all these, man, like AI is not just to check the box and the answer. We had this conversation. Alli and I were talking about this before the podcast about how people are using AI, and when you use it just to check the box, it is so it's a force multiplier. It's not just flash. It's something that, we can really scale individualized learning without losing humanity. And part of the ways that we're using it in our school is we're piloting it and going deeper. And this is another Jason Van Nuss piece where we're having our students utilize AI to give them, after they research a career path that they think they want to go into at this time, and have them do an actual interview using AI and giving feedback, and using that feedback to improve. Look, the kids still gotta go through an interview, right? So I think we have then the time as career coaches to talk and speak with those students and take a look at their scripts and those types of things when we don't have to bring in 50 different people to do mock interviews at once. So we can do that right with a laptop and, Magic School or chat or what have you. And again, this Jean Shi is the CEO. This is AI built, localized, student-centered, expert-led CTE courses. Think about that, right? You don't have the funds, you don't have the place to build these. And Christy has said this in her book as well. These amazing centers of technology and innovation where we're putting cars up on lifts and working and changing oils and working in engineering and different things like that. We have VR that can at least start that process, and it can individualize. And again, like this is when technology is enhancing learning, and there has to be that human there, and it just doesn't distract. So we could go on technology here.
I know, but it was good to hear that like leaders emphasized it as a tool for personalization because it
Hmm.
really can help scale any operation,
Yeah.
and there is a place for it. And also, well, we had Jeremy Smith on to kick off 2025, like AI, he wants AI first employees, like, right? It's out there. It's not going to just go away. So, how do we use it to
Yep.
enhance and personalize and individualize and just make what we're doing better, and then also just teach students on it. I mean, I think back to when I was in school, and we had the World Wide Web and websites, and like we had to learn how to type on a computer. We had keyboarding class, and like learning how to use Microsoft Office at the time, and PowerPoint, and eventually it was Google Sheets and Word, and just there were times that school helped me learn the technology at the time, to be
Hmm.
literate in it at least, to then utilize it for whatever the next step was. Thank goodness I had some of those skills. Some of those skills were self-taught. Some of those skills were definitely in school. And I think you and I have shared, and we heard tons of examples of this at the ACT conference. You go to any conference with individuals working with high schoolers in particular, even middle schoolers, we think kids know how to use technology and they don't.
Right.
Or like what would it's like when you see something that's AI and you're like, that ain't right. High schooler, it's like that's how I feel like high schoolers are using technology. It's like they're using it, but it's very evident that it ain't right. Like something's off. Like that
Hmm.
picture is weird. You know what I mean? Like when you just get that sense when you're looking at something that's definitely AI created, but then like when a student
Isn't
is
that the
using it,
new
it's like,
trend? Like on like social media, you got to pick it out. Oh, check that car out. It's not right. It's got three wheels or something. So,
oh my God. Okay, I have to do, like, if anybody, I love Elise Myers. She is like the internet's best friend. And if you don't know
mhm.
who she is, she's just funny. And she has this very funny video that I'm pretty sure came out not that long ago. And it's basically she's on a date with a robot and it's like asking her to like showing printouts of like, what is this? And she's just like, that's a motorcycle. Like, which ones? And it's like so funny, but it's like, that is, trying to help students level up. We can't just like forget about it because like
Yeah.
as we're upskilling, we also have to help them.
Hmm.
And so I I think that flexibility just it increases equity and it also helps students no matter what their next step is
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And so the the other piece that I thought was really interesting in the responses is a lot of the responses talked about like the adult work of disruption
Yeah.
and that it wasn't just like what are students doing, but it's like what do the adults need to do? And leadership is courage. It's having accountability and it's discomforting at times. And so a lot of people echoed this thought that disruption was described as hard. It was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. And
Yeah.
so, um, Michael Gustafson
Yeah.
said, disruption is having the hard conversations.
Hmm.
And then Jeremy Knox said, not taking no for an answer. And I was like, okay, right?
Yep.
Like that's disrupting education. I was like, that's really interesting. And um really emphasizing like systems don't change until adults do.
Yeah.
And um and then Lanessa Keene
Hmm.
said making changes away from what has been considered normal and tradition.
Yep.
That's going to take some courage.
Yeah.
What do you think about it, the adult work?
I think the adult work is another kind. It's so funny because we just had this conversation today at Naperville where I'm working, and it's really we started working the really hard conversations come with becoming uncomfortable, right? Because if you look in I'll throw this again. I keep saying Brett Thompson. If you guys see Brett Thompson, like connect with him on LinkedIn because he's my co-coordinator. But we were talking about rewards and consequences in the K through 12 classroom versus the professional workplace. Now, I want you to think about what I just said, right? Like, the hard conversations, the uncomfortable, when we talk about like being on time and, attendance, um, um, effort, right? Engagement, communication. People are like, oh, those are just behavioral. No, those are actual skills. And we are like, we're having this hard conversation because education, it doesn't mean like we want to just strip the kid of every opportunity because they made a mistake. No, we need to coach them, but we need to coach them differently. We can't coach them through the carrot being a grade. We can't coach them with saying, okay, well, we're just, going to push that aside because that's going to make our school report card look bad. No, we've got to coach about, the consequences in school are like detentions, maybe a little loss of credit. We're going to talk to your parents, but in life, it's loss of pay. It's termination. So what we need to do is have this real in CTE world, mistakes and accountability again, that's a grade penalty, but there's financial loss there. There's discipline that actually formal discipline that happens in the workforce. And these are I think this is the adult work of disruption, right? Like we have got to really get to the point of telling our kids, hey, this is what's going to happen. And the competitive advantage, we are competing. At the end of the day, Like we are competing. We're competing for jobs. We're competing. And I don't mean like throw teamwork out of the thing or help your fellow neighbor or any, I don't mean any of that. I just mean we need to give students a more real life picture, as well as, I think Jeremy Knox said it like when he was saying the taking no for an not taking no for an answer. Like, no, we need to work with we need our industry, we need our community to tell us this, because then we need to stop having, this is going to be really harsh, but like our school is a joke, right? Because grade inflation, because a kid can miss half the school year and still pass. What does that mean? Like if I was a teacher and I didn't show up for half the year, you still going to pay me? So
Yeah.
these are really, I'm being very crass here. I'm being Jeremy Smith like. I like this. He got me fired up. Um, Kudos to you, Jeremy. We love you, buddy. But basically, really, it's the reality of things. We need to stop padding things. We will allow the students to fail, but allow them time to be able to teach them and coach them in a real world. And that's uncomfortable. That's very
Mm,
uncomfortable for parents, for students, for adults in the building. And that we are in a system that is just lying to students a lot. We're saying, all right, well, you can do this here, so you might as well. So I think that's, when we start to look at schools and what success means, right? And that was another way of like redefining what success actually means in education. And what is a traditional success metric versus a CTE metric? What are
mhm.
the outcomes that matter just beyond, hey, I got a diploma and maybe I got into this college, right? And these are I mean, these are deep, deep, like thinkers that just shot this out. Again, we just asked, how are you disrupting education in 2026? Um, and college enrollment is no longer an adequate indicator. So Leah Arnold, the CTE director, put, we have to stop counting on how many students enroll in college as an identifier of high school success. We should count how many graduates can afford a home in their community 5 to 10 years after graduation. That shows success. That's killer, because I can't tell you how many times I've had students come back to me after their first semester of college, sometimes before that first semester of college, after they graduated, and they're like, this isn't for me. This isn't what I thought it was. Why? Why do they not know this yet? And I think that's a failure. That's when we really have to get redefine what success means. Because if all our kids go to college right after school and then that's it, that's all the metric we take, we know what happens. We know how
Mhm.
many students drop out. We know how many students are going through and not making it through, dropping out, all these different things, and that's got financial consequences as well to a lot of our families. And I like, and I said this before. Jeremy said this. Jill Rossetti, a superintendent and a director, said families are now asking for relevance, rigor, and real world readiness. And I got to tell you, I've always used this as a theory. I have not done a bunch of research on this. It's just a theory. But if you have a parent group that just got shellacked by the economy, the 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 college debt, and it's the millennials, and statistically speaking, I know that's factual. But now with their children, they're like, yo, I don't want this to happen to my kid. So.
Because I think the metric and what Leah's getting at is okay, it's one thing to share how many students enroll in college. Okay, great. But what are you leaving out there? Okay, just because they go to college and they're it's kind of like what Abby Cottle shared with her university. It felt like they were doing everything to get her a job or get her next step so they could put it on their percentage of we got this many of our graduates a job within 6 months or we're in a program. Great.
Yep.
But then what if that statistic is not staying? Okay, just because they enrolled in college, did they go? Did they finish the 4 year degree? What's that percentage? What percentage of students, get a job from that degree, right? Like if you trace it, and those statistics are typically abysmal. And we've had people on the podcast share them. I mean, it's like, so if 30% of kids are going now, around 30 to 40% of kids are going to college, but of that, only like 30% of those finish a degree within 6 years. That is a wild reduction.
Hmm.
And so it's like anybody can make a statistic look good, but is that really measuring the actual success of the school? And
Hmm.
that's where, redefining what does success actually look like, and how do we hold accountability when we reframe that? And so a lot of people put in their response that like success, like disrupting education means that success is not equal college acceptance, and
Hmm.
success is more likely like stability, agency, future sustainability of their community. And like the big thing that was in multiple responses was students being able to stay in their communities if they choose.
Yep.
And like, is that Christy Vleski talks about this with Edge of Vitality, and that it's a missing link. Um, and so that really is where I mean, I think it's such a game changer. That's how you can be really bold. In 2026 is like, how do we define success for our district? And one of those ways could be throwing out the old metrics of what school is supposed to do from it's a vanity metric, right?
Hmm.
Like, so personal trainers, I did some personal training, by the way. So like if you go to the gym, it's still early 2026 when this episode comes out, so it's like high gym season, and you'll see all the bros in there working on what's called their mirror muscles. So right, their pecs, their biceps, their abs, like their quads. But like all of your strength in your body actually comes from your posterior chain, your back muscles, your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves, like nothing that you see in the mirror, even your triceps. It's triceps, there's three of them versus biceps, there's two, right? Like it's just, it's so funny. Like,
Love the
so
biology lesson. I love this. It's you're
I
actually using CTE and science, by the way, at the same time. Thank you. Keep going.
exactly, like, how do we measure success? Like when I was
Yeah.
training someone, I can tell you it wasn't the number on the scale.
Hmm.
Like I'm like, for some people, yes, okay, that's important. We want to lower that because it is an overall health metric, but is it really a measure of success? Because there's this thing called recomping, and it's where like you're at a healthy weight, you don't need to lose weight, but you need to change like the fat to muscle ratio, and so your weight doesn't actually change that much, but you look thinner and leaner because you have less fat on your body and you have more lean muscle. And so it's like that's an how does that, for some people, that if you just looked at the number on the scale, if that was your only metric for success, you would completely miss out on the fact that like you're way healthier. Because you've recomped, and now you're like, so let's say you started at 15% body fat, now you're down to like 8%. Like that's a huge recomp. And
Hmm.
but the number on the scale might not be that different, but
Right.
you will feel a lot different. And that's what I feel like a lot of school success is measuring. It's just measuring like the number on the scale. And it's not a really good metric. It's just a number. It's like a grade. Like, what is that measuring?
Yeah.
And so I think ACT Vision and bringing leaders together made a lot of things clear for us. And just that disruption is not a future idea. It's already underway. And I think some people, they didn't want us to share their answers. We did not. But
Hmm.
so it is happening like locally, courageously, and often still quietly, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I did want to emphasize that because there are people doing it disrupt education a little bit underground. Like we're more mainstream now, but
Hmm.
like you started this as, you just look at the logo, it's graffiti,
Yeah.
like we're doing it, you know, in the dark at night under the bridges. Not actually, but you know what I mean. Like,
It is
disruption
dark
has a
here.
little,
And my light
yeah,
went out, so that's why I'm like I ordered one.
yay. Peter doesn't know what to do without his ring light.
I know. It's like dark up there. Sorry. But yeah, I do like, it is, you know, look, man, just I like the build quietly. But I also, I do like, make it loud when it works, right? Like don't let anybody, you don't need to tell everybody how you're like constantly going and going and going. You don't need to ask for permission, because you're building what students need. But we do need to get a little bit louder, I think, about the successes and wins. And that's
Yes.
really what this room did, when we got how are you disrupting in 2026? And honestly, I would say if I were to go back 10 years, yeah, and ask this question, people would be like, "Are you out of your mind?" Like we weren't there yet, right? And
Yep.
and it's interesting. I'm not sitting here saying, "Yeah, I was way in front of the curve." No, I mean, I was curious. I wanted to know what people thought, and especially what my students thought, and how they can, work into changing how we did things. We are co-building, and how businesses see things and organizations. So I think, as we wrap up this conversation, I think one thing's clear that, well, number two things. Number one, we're being bold here, and I love this and we're going to keep this consistent throughout 2026. But it isn't about launching just another initiative or changing the next trend or whatever. Like when you change and your metrics change, if success changes and looks different, like there is a truth being told, and that's what it's really about. Now, what we have to understand is that truth is going to expose some really bad stuff that
Mm,
people, we weren't teaching the right things, and we need to be okay with that. And I think that is why CTE right now, it's just bubbled up so much, because the truth is it isn't a side pathway, and it can't be. It's infrastructure for relevance. It's the foundation of why we learn things, right? And why schools and education should exist, so we can help our fellow human beings to create a better world, period,
hmm.
right? So how can we do that? And let's go to the hard truths, right? We know a lot of these things aren't working. The worksheets that they don't need that all the way through 12 years. Is there a place in education for it? Yes, there is, but it's not K through 12. Our people, we all need real work experiences. Um, we've got to the we gotta talk about the truth that systems won't change until adults are willing to let go of what feels comfortable. You've got to sit a student down, or a coworker down, especially in education or in a community, and say, look, this is what's happening, and this is what we need to happen. How do we get there? Right? I'm not here pointing fingers or anything like that. We've done that enough. And what we heard from leaders at ACTE Vision 2025, it wasn't fear from these leaders, it was clarity, it was action. And that's what I really, really like to hear. That was extreme. I mean, that brings goosebumps to me, Alli, because like, we just need to ask better questions. What are we building for? What is it? Compliance? Is it competence? Are we preparing kids for tests or life? We've talked about it so much, and now there's action in this room that we were at. And I just love where this is going.
I will say, for those who don't know, so ACTE, the Vision Conference, like I said, it was like this, it's a Super Bowl conference. They have many conferences throughout the year, but like this is like their big one. And if you aren't aware, in 2026, they are celebrating their 100th year as an
Mhm.
organization. And so it's a big one. It's down in New Orleans, in December of this year. And I just like, we are planning on being there.
Yeah, get your hotel room.
And yeah, I'll get your hotel room now. I will also say that, okay, I had never been to a CTE conference, let alone ACTE conference.
Mhm.
And in I I would think a lot of people could benefit from a conference like this, even if you're not in quote unquote CTE. It's like it is a hub, and if you're just like not aware of what it can do or how this work happens, that type of conference would be a really good one. And if you can't make that one in December, I would recommend just check out there are other conferences. There might be
Mhm.
one near you. There's
Yeah.
one in, aren't you going to one in like Rhode Island? And
Yeah, we're going.
um
Yeah, there's work-based learning ones. There's states have them. We have an ACTE, Illinois, ACTE, Association of Career Technical Education Conference, FETC. There are your local ones. There's MBEA. There's so many different like areas, and you know, that's really, I mean, when you leave and get out of your comfort zone and go talk to people,
yeah.
um, number one, make sure you're the dumbest person in the room because I tell you what, you'll learn the most. And number two, I mean, let's think about how things get ignited in these meetings create bold things that you're going to create. And 10 years ago, that's how this whole podcast was created. It was a little bit deeper. It was an EF tour, but like that's where, we are listening to others and hearing others and where you're frustrated and where you might not be heard all the time at your organization or your school. um Boy, I found there were other people who felt like me. So,
Yes.
and I think that was cool, and it was really cool to see how, I was like, I don't know how Alli, who is a, by trade a chemistry or science teacher, come to something like this and just to you know, it's we're all CTE. I mean, that's I
I
think,
know.
yeah. So I think that really, it's how we really start heading somewhere more grounded to where, we're towards relevance over tradition. You start to see experience over theory, systems that are designed around students and communities and the world they're stepping into, not around ivory towers only, right?
Mhm.
And I think, there's one thing that I did say on the end of the Pegasus series. That'll rattle your brain too. But it's like we're not here telling you what you need to do or telling you have to comply with what we're saying. Honestly, we're just here opening that box and giving you more ideas. And it always comes back to a different masterclass and working with people. And please, take a look at some of the people we mentioned today, our guests that come on. Take a look at organizations that we talk about. You don't have to go, you don't have to buy in, but really it's just these are just different opportunities to try some new different things or to take a piece of what they're doing and maybe try it out in your school by creating it. So I think, again, it's not about breaking school or anything like that. That's not disrupt education. It's really about building what comes next. And that's where we're going to be bold in 2026, Allie.
Right.
So here we go. I want to thank everybody for taking part in the ACTE Vision conference and this whole kind of, hey, we're going to try this. Allie and I did not know what was going to happen when we asked that simple question: how are you disrupting education in 2026? And you came through. So we want to just thank all the people who put in their quotes, said how they were doing things. Even the ones who are like, don't tell people anything about me or whatever. That's cool. It's fine. Hopefully you're listening to the podcast. You're like, all right, I wasn't alone, because you're not.
You're not.
We've got so much more in 2026 being bold. Love this. We're going to have to do this again, Allie. This is something where we're going to have to kind of gather some information out there and relive it and tell people what we found, because this was amazing. So thank you all for disrupting education in 2026. Thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all across podcast forums. We love hearing from you. So head over to disrupteducationpodcast.com and we'll talk to you. Thank you so much. For Alli, Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrawser. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thanks for tuning into the Disrupt Education Podcast. If this episode sparked an idea, pushed your thinking, or made you look at education a little bit differently, well, that's the point. We're here to elevate real stories, real people, and real change within our schools and communities. If you want more conversations like this, head over to disrupteducationpodcast.com. You'll find episodes, resources, and ways to connect with Alli and I. Hey, let's keep disrupting, because the future belongs to the learners who dare to do things differently. We'll catch you next time.